Well, hello everyone. And man, did I have a great breakfast. I had a whole cantaloupe and I got really into cantaloupes lately. I don't know why, just every once in a while I get really into cantaloupes. So we have a special guest today. Michael is finally joining us after failing to show up last time for our podcast. We talked about spirituality and failure, and I was
And
very
I
disappointed when he
failed to
went.
show.
Oh, I was very disappointed. But we have a very special guest today. We have Katie Amanda Papo over here. And she's the host of the Binge Eating to Food Freedom podcast. We worked together for quite a while on the Achieving Food Freedom program. And she's honestly a great voice when it comes to our topic, which is spirituality and food. Katie, say hello so people can see your face and
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here.
We're happy to have you.
Great. That's a great introduction. Very concise. So, Katie, tell the people who are listening just a little bit about kind of like your background around spirituality and food, because you have a very unique kind of take and story, something that you don't really hear anywhere else. So, and everything I'm going to talk about actually came from inspiration from you, kind of around that concept of spirituality and food, because I've been with you throughout that journey as well. So, how about you give us a little bit of that synopsis and we'll dive right in?
For sure. Well, you've been with me since really the beginning of my personal journey with food. For those who don't know me or my background, first and foremost, I used to really struggle with food. And I would have definitely labeled myself as a binge eater, as a food addict, as feeling very out of control with food. I always oscillated between like being really restrictive and really healthy and being really on plan. And then something would happen and it would all fall apart. And I would just swing to the complete opposite extreme and binge and then tell myself starting tomorrow, I need to, get back on my plan. And this went on for a long time. And we were actually in the ashram together. For those who don't know what an ashram is, it's a monastic environment where swamis, who are monks in the yoga tradition, live and practice. And I had been living there for some
The
time
the
already.
best swamis,
The
the
best
best
swamis,
ones.
some world-class teachers still. We still go back frequently. But that was where the journey kind of started for me. And then, of course, we got married and you saw me heal my relationship with food myself, and you were extremely supportive, one of the best supports I had during the journey, if not the best. And then, as you also know, because you were there, I went on to create a program that helped. Now it's been hundreds of people, many of which we both know and have experienced together, and we've coached them together. One being my mom, who's been on my podcast. So that was a really beautiful healing
She
experience.
was the first. She was the very first.
She wasn't the very first. She was probably the
Ah,
yeah, but you started around the time that she joined.
okay.
You started
So
coaching.
she was the first for me. She was the
Yeah,
first
she
for me.
was the first.
You were
Maybe I
first,
said, I
yeah.
need a little help with my mom. No, just kidding.
Little Shahar support with the parents.
Right.
But really the work, the reason it's unique, and I think the reason it connects to spirituality, even though I wouldn't even, if you listen to my podcast, you might not hear me use that word a lot, but I think in essence it is. Um, because for me, it was always my relationship with food until that point had been me trying to change the outside. So it would be like, don't bring food in the house, follow these food rules, have discipline, don't eat until 4 p.m., like all of these things from the outside. And what I hadn't yet really understood or looked at that point was my relationship with food isn't coming from the food itself, right? Food is just, if I had like a donut right here or an orange or a thing of ice cream, like it's a neutral object. And people could say like, oh, it's, I can't have ice cream in the house because it calls to me, or bread is evil or things like that. Like we've all heard people say that. I've said things like that. But really, if we look at it, they're just sitting here as neutral objects. So where does this relationship with food come from? it's our relationship with our own inner world, with our thoughts, with our reactions, with our behaviors, with our subconscious reactions that we're barely even aware of, if at all. I find most people aren't. I certainly wasn't. So, if you look at the difference between, like, let's say, all of us, like the three of us, we each have like a box of cookies in front of us, right? One of us might be like, oh, well, these look nice. I'll have them at some point if I'm in the mood for them, or I might like enjoy a bite and then like move on and forget about it. It's like doesn't consume my day, but I can still like enjoy it and be fine. Another one of us might be like, oh my God, I can't even start eating them because once I have one, I'm going to eat the whole box. And even if we don't eat them, we're going to keep thinking about the box is there. Michael's raising his hand like, oh, see.
Yeah.
Another one of us might, just be completely out of control from the beginning, or just go in this back and forth battle of should I have the cookie? Should I not have the cookie? How many cookies should I have? You know,
I call it the circuit theater. You take like you come around, you take a little bite, then you move around, you go, then you come back, you eat again, then you move around, you eat
exactly. Well,
again.
that was me too. And that was also my mom actually with cheesecake. She would like take a little sliver of the cheesecake,
Right.
eat it, go about
Right.
the day, pass by the kitchen again, another sliver before you know it, like half the cheesecake's gone. So, but this is a result of not the cookies, right? It's a result of how we're interacting with our own mind, how compulsive we actually feel. And it all boils down to our relationship with ourselves. And what my mission became personally, now, of course, I've extended this mission to others, but at the time, all I wanted for myself was just to be better. I just didn't, I wanted this to end. So my prayers used to be, God help me, overcome this problem. I'll do anything. I'll help people for the rest of my life if you can just help me overcome this problem. But what I later learned is that this problem wasn't, binge eating wasn't really the problem. It was the symptom for sure of a greater problem. But I was just treating the binge eating as the problem behaviorally. And I didn't want to just be the person who overcame binge eating, who when that urge came, that I like fought it and overcame it. Like that's the way I was doing it. But what I really wanted was to become one of those people who could have the cookies in the cabinet and truly not be bothered, or have a bite of something without feeling compelled to eat the whole thing. And I saw people around me who were like that. I didn't understand how they were like that, but I knew just from witnessing that it was possible. Was it possible for me? I didn't know yet, but I had to hold the belief that it was, because that was the vision I really wanted for my life, because I didn't want to just constantly have to overcome something, but still have it fill all my mental space. So that became my personal journey, which, as you know, being in the ashram with me during those early days, I'm sure you remember that time when I was given a cupcake and I wanted to share it with you. And it took everything I had to not eat it myself. Like I started out with really small wins. And now food is just not, I wouldn't even say it's a non-issue. I would say it just keeps getting better and better and better and better. Like it's not something like where I've been in recovery and I have to maintain it, like kind of how you hear. But it's like, I just have a great relationship with food, probably better than anybody I even know at this point.
Mm.
And it keeps surprising me in ways where I like think, how could this even get better? And then it does. Like I'll realize I haven't craved this in years, or I'll realize like,
Mm.
oh, I had this food in the cabinet. I never could have had that. Things like that, that I crave healthier things than I ever have before. Like all of that is just it's only getting better from here. So that's the real message that I want to impart to people who struggle with food, is that it doesn't have to be necessarily a struggle, because when you truly know how to work with yourself and with your own mind and with your own body, instead of it becoming an inner battle, it becomes a team. And how much better do we all function when we have a team behind us instead of when we have someone constantly fighting us? So if we're doing it to ourselves, if we're constantly fighting ourselves, we're losing a lot of energy. We're giving a beating because we're hard on ourselves. We're taking the beating because we're hard on
Mhm.
ourselves. But when we have a team, look at all the strength that we have. And I know that because I had you, Shahar, as a big part of my team. Like it was me and you helping me.
Right.
And now I have a program, of course, that you know about and have helped guide people through too. I created a new one recently that I'm going to be announcing soon. And it's actually called the new normal because
Mm.
it's not just about
Cool.
overcoming an issue, it's about
Love that.
creating an entirely new normal in how you relate to food, where when you look back on yourself, you don't even recognize that person. Like I don't, when I look back on binge eating Katie, like that's a different lifetime. That's a different person. I understand and I remember, but I don't relate to that anymore. Um, so
Yeah.
that's the gist. And so I think it's a very
Yeah,
spiritual
I love that.
process because it's all between you and you. That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point. And for everyone who is listening to it, and if you resonate with that feeling of binge eating, etc., I can't recommend enough working with Katie. It's really is life-changing, and there's no programs out there. As someone who worked on it pretty intimately, I know for a fact it's the real deal, and it changes
Mhm.
everything, and with very little effort. So, Katie, you brought up kind of a cool point, like the concept of spirituality and how that kind of came up for you as a big, I don't want to say motivator, but it was in a bit, a kind of a way of looking at it that helps you. And to me, I always think of spirituality. What is spirituality's main purpose or goal or function? Is it's designed to increase awareness. That's really what it is. It's all about increasing our awareness, and it's a relationship with yourself, right? And how we develop that with yourself and God, of course. So here's something that we all deal with. We all have that experience, which is food. Food is every single day, and if you have food addiction, it's very, very different than having like drug dependency, etc. Because you can take all those drugs and isolate yourself from the environment, but with food you can't. Food is everywhere, and you can't be without food. So if you have an unhealthy relationship with food, that means you have an unhealthy relationship at least 2 to 3 times every single day. So it's like you have this constant battle inside your own head every single day. Or if you use food for numbing and you do that, it becomes, like you said, a force that works against us. And spirituality is really about learning how to increase your awareness, not numb yourself, and at the same time increase your ability to move fluidly and smoothly throughout this world in a harmonized fashion, right? That's always how I saw it. That's kind of like the main concept of yin and yang, the Taoist, the Buddhist. It's all about working in harmony, working with your dharma, with your duties. It's all about working without the friction. So, if you have a good relationship with food, if you can interact that spirituality into your relationship with food, now you have a good relationship and a good positive experience 2 to 3 times every day. So, if you can incorporate spirituality into eating, now you've been doing spirituality in practice every single day, multiple times a day. And you know what they say, if how much time does it take you to become an expert in something? Do you guys heard that one? Do you know how long does it take, Michael? Do you
Is it
remember?
like 10,000 hours or something like that?
Yes,
Or yeah.
exactly. 10,000 hours. They say that's the estimate to become a full-on expert. So if you practice, I did that calculation once. If you practice once a week for like an hour, like you come and you do meditation for a full hour, you know how long it will take you to become a meditation expert?
I told me this before. It's like 200 something years, right? Or like 100
204 years or 208
204. Ah,
years.
see, I knew I was
Now
close.
that's a long time. That's a long time, I would say. But if you practice twice a week, full 2 hours of meditation every week, now it's 104 years. Great progress. But if you practice every day and something as simple as like food, where every day it's 3 times a day, 5 minutes of meditation or 2 minutes, 1 minute, even 10 seconds of meditation before you eat, after you eat, during your eating, now you're going to become an expert really, really fast. And incorporating spirituality practices into daily life is really the key to progressing really fast in this. That's kind of was my perspective in the relationship of food and spirituality.
Mhm. Yeah, and I see them kind of link as well, especially when you talk about different coping skills. Like you said, kind of equated it to potential like self-medications with like drugs, alcohol, things along those lines. With my own experience was actually the opposite. I was actually anorexic for quite some time, and what I found through that experience and further reflection, further studies, within the field of psychology and things like that, that can sometimes not necessarily for everybody, but represent an aspect of having control when you feel like other things are outside of your control, right? And so that was something that I struggled with for quite some time, especially with, childhood experiences, things along those lines when everything felt so chaotic, especially with body dysmorphia, things along those lines. That was like the one thing I could actually control. So breaking out of those, poor coping skills, those negative feedback loops and things along those lines, bringing in more of that mindfulness spiritual practice I could see as a very beneficial way of, redefining your relationship with those things. I love what you said, Katie. It's not limiting the outside stuff as much as it is looking internally and finding that sense of alignment and, my favorite word, balance, right? So
Right.
Well,
That's
can I share something on what you just said, Michael, with the
I would
anorexia?
I would love to because I was curious about your thoughts on
Yeah.
that. I was going to prompt
So
you.
I definitely agree with you on your perspective that a big part of it for a lot of people is the element of control. I too was anorexic
Hmm.
before I swung the other way. But exactly what happens to a lot of people who are anorexic, and this is, I think, part of, we can't separate food and spirituality because it's part of how we treat ourselves. It's how we nourish ourselves or how we punish ourselves, or, it can tie in many different ways. But I think that one of the mindsets or the reframes that really helped me stop fighting myself and understand the deeper workings beneath all this is like, let's take this anorexic example, like, especially for people who have been that way and then swing the opposite. A lot of times, like you said, it was a need for control. So even though it was in a dysfunctional way, you intuitively, your mind, your body intuitively were seeking balance through that. So you had an out of control environment. So you looked for something that you could control. That's actually like, even though it was in a dysfunctional way, that is balance, right?
Hmm.
It's warped, but it's like what we're seeking is what we need.
Hmm.
And for someone who's been anorexic for a long time and then swings to binge eating, it's or back and forth between whether it was anorexia or you're just gone through a long string of diets or restriction, we seek the balance of the what the binge represents, which is the freedom, the relief from the rules, the release of control, actually, for someone who has to be in control in every area of
right.
life. When you get home at the end of a long day and you've had to be on all day, all you want to do is turn off and, have that release, that relief. And that's what, for many people who restrict food, that's what the binge represents. So even though we beat ourselves for having these more dysfunctional or self-harming behaviors, it was um, it was consoling for me to realize that at my core, though, I am seeking balance in some way. My
Hmm.
mind, my body, we are seeking balance and we're trying to help ourselves, maybe in a
Hmm.
misguided way, but we're wired for that balance and we will seek it. So now it's just about learning how to do it in a way that actually serves you and serves your greater goals rather than um, kind of derails or defeats you.
Hmm.
But I like to think that at our core, we will seek balance in whatever form.
Hmm.
And I think that's actually a positive sign, that at our core, we want to help ourselves and we want to feel better. And we just don't always have the tools that we need in that moment. But then when we notice this dysfunction, then we can look at it, like Shahar said, with self-awareness and decide, what is the version of myself that I would like to create? What is the relationship with myself that I would like to have? Because at the end of the day, we walk with ourselves through this life. We're the greatest partners we'll ever have. We're with ourselves all the time. Like we live here, our mind and our body, we live here.
Hmm.
Like whether we like it or not, we live here. So if that's the relationship, you're guaranteed, think of all the work that we put into our relationships with our spouses or our children or our parents or the people who will know for most of our lives. But that's honestly a small portion compared to the amount of time we spend with ourselves. Yet, how much intention do we really put into that relationship? And imagine how much more successful in every area that we could be if we have ourselves as our supportive team.
Mhm.
So I think that all of these dysfunctions or negative or self-harming habits are at their core an effort for balance and an effort for healing in some kind of way. And if we can acknowledge that and appreciate ourselves, that's a really good first step in finding a path
Right.
that supports you.
Right. That's beautifully put. And I know we have Michael, we have you maybe for another 9 minutes. After that, me and Katie will continue.
Mhm.
But I think that's a beautiful point that Katie is bringing up. And Michael, I want to hear your opinion also, because you've been in this country way more than me. You were born in this country. So I want to talk about the relationship of food in cultures, because also in the spiritual sense, every spiritual path has its own kind of relationship with food in a way. The Taoists have their own perspective and how they bless the food, how they treat the food. The Buddhists, the Hindus, the Christians, the Jewish, they all have their own way of interacting with food. And in our culture, you can learn a lot on the culture, for example, on the way the language is built. So, for example, something my dad likes to mention, in the United States, we don't have a word for like in good appetite. Like when people don't say that before they start eating, like bon appetit, or in Hebrew we say beteavon. And there's many different cultures who have that word in it, but we don't say that. Isn't that interesting that also we don't have that in our language, and also we are notoriously a culture with bad appetite because nobody's wishing everybody to have a good appetite, even though the idea of prayer before food and blessing the food, that is also a concept. So Michael, and of course Katie, jump in. Uh, how do you see the relationship of our modern culture in around food in relationship to ourselves, and of course spirituality, how it kind of like hovers or encompasses the whole thing?
Yeah, and Katie, please jump in if any of my information here is wrong. Just thinking, kind of outside the box and some of the things that I've kind of heard along my journeys and things like that. But I think it's really interesting here in the West, we almost have this, you know, darned if you do, darned if you don't kind of mentality about it. There's a lot of consumerism in our culture, from my understanding. So it's just a random fact I'd heard in the past. Again, Katie, please correct me if I'm wrong. You've heard differently. What I had heard is actually that, because people here, like over in Europe, over in other cultures, like they serve like smaller portions, things like that. Somewhere along the way here in the West, we decided to do double the portions, right? Everybody says like there's bigger plates here in the United States. And from what I
Mhm.
heard, or my understanding is that that traditionally was almost like a marketing thing. You were supposed to eat half the meal, take half the meal home so that you remembered that place and you would want to go back there. But somewhere along the lines, we kind of lost that and we just started eating this big plate of food in front of us, right? And
Well,
what's
also TV dinners, right? TV
TV
dinners is
dinners
also
as
big.
well.
Moving from the dining room table to sitting on the couch and being distracted by watching
Hmm.
TV and eating.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. We have this culture of gain, achieve, obtain, things like that. But then at the same time, you also have another side of things that's saying, well, you're being unhealthy and you don't look fit, and like it's just this kind of like image-based kind of thing. So it's just quite this dichotomy between, hey, consume, here's all the advertisements for all these corporate entities that will serve you fast food, or buy one get one free meals, or we could even go into how society is kind of set up against success, the social determinants of health. Traditionally, lower income communities have like the worst grade of food, like the highest processed stuff, things along those lines. So it's the things that are attainable and advertised to us as, hey, here's a good measurement of like your success and consumption and things like that. On the other side, we're being told, yeah, but at the same time, if you do that too much, then you're going to look fat and you're going to be ugly and you can't do that.
Right,
You
right.
need more discipline and things along those lines.
Which
So
is
it's yeah.
which is very ironic because
Hmm.
obviously this is going to be a very biased take, but
Hmm.
we're all here vegan. So
Hmm.
ironically, the healthiest food is going to be whole foods, plant-based diet, and that's the cheapest food: rice, beans, vegetables. Like really, that's like that. But for some reason, even though you have access to healthy food, like you would still go and grab that Pringles and like on the go food because we have that kind of relationship of rushing with food or sitting down and eating while watching. Now it's watching your phone, right? Well, how many of
Hmm.
us eat while watching a phone, like looking at our phone like that?
Hmm.
And it creates this weird
Thanks for the
relationship.
demonstration.
Yep, totally. Yeah, exactly.
I need to illustrate so everybody understands. You see, that's why I do this a lot. But yeah, it's a odd culture and relationship with our food, right? Like I think it's
Hmm.
weird,
Hmm.
but I get it also.
Well, if you look at it just at the core, though, of all of it, it's there's less awareness, there's less mindfulness,
Hmm.
there's a lot more food um, scarcity in the sense that like you said, we have like more food than we could ever in a million years need. Yet um, there's this mixed messaging around, but you shouldn't eat that.
Hmm.
Right.
And so a lot of us, even if we have all the food we could ever want, we still feel that energy of scarcity, especially for somebody who's gone through years and years of dieting, telling herself, I can't have this, I can't have that. Like, think about, I use this thought experiment with some people who don't understand food scarcity, and I say, like, imagine, um, I actually said this recently to someone who I had worked with, her dad, who she was a teenager and I was working with her, and I was trying to explain to her dad, like, a small degree of what she's been going through. And he didn't have any eating issues. So I said, like, imagine, starting, tomorrow, all of the chocolate in your town will be gone and you're not going to be able to eat chocolate for, the rest of the year. And I said, what are you going to do today in preparation for that? And he was like, well, I'm going to go out and buy chocolate. And
Hmm.
I was like, but before I even said this, right, you weren't thinking about chocolate. You might not even be in the mood for chocolate, right? But now, as soon as you hear you can't have it, that's the first thing you're going to go out and do.
Hmm.
So, a lot of us, we have these, even if it's not external immediately, we've gotten all this inundation that has actually created more food obsession, even if we've just set the rule on ourselves, right? Like, I remember I used to try intermittent fasting. I thought it would be a good eating style for me since I was binging anyway. But what would
Hmm.
happen is you have to eat between, let's say it's 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. By the time 3 o'clock is coming around, I'm like, shoot, got to stuff it all in. Like, I still wasn't listening to my body. I still was overriding everything. Like, I still didn't have good appetite, right? Like, a lot of us, we eat, we're not even hungry,
Hmm.
or we don't even know if we're hungry. We haven't even stopped long enough to even see if that's a factor. Some people just like see food, pop it in their mouth. It's mindless and there's no awareness. So, my personal view, even though I think in the United States, we're probably some of the worst in terms of our relationship with food compared to other countries, I don't ever um, I don't get hung up in culture and tradition or whatever, because to me, what you eat is a personal decision between you and yourself. And no matter what influences are around you, you still have the capacity to choose. So I like to promote, instead of like, saying, oh, well, this is how I was raised and this is my culture. I like to promote personal empowerment and personal responsibility, that maybe that was true, but now you're in a position where you have awareness and there's a choice and you get to decide the type of relationship that you want to create. And it's extremely possible to do that. Whereas if I was like, oh, well, I'm stuck like this because there's always commercials for burgers. Like,
Mhm.
okay, well, I've just completely removed my self-responsibility.
Mhm.
So I like to,
And agency, not just responsibility, like your ability to like be a free agent, which is
Mhm.
really kind of the core issue here.
yes, exactly. Exactly.
So
So,
just a heads
Uh,
up, I have to take off. Shahar, you should still be
well,
the host, so you should be good to continue. But
yes, yeah,
Katie,
yeah.
Katie, I love you so much. It's so
I
good to
love you
see
so much, Michael. It was
you.
so
It's so
nice to
good to
see
see
you.
you. Yeah.
I hope to
And
see you and hang out soon.
oh, definitely. We most certainly will cross paths again.
All right.
All
Yeah,
right.
Michael, give us like when you're able, give us like a 5 minutes video, kind of like separate, because I'm
Mhm.
still curious to hear how your journey is now and your relationship with food in a modern time
Oh, I can give that
is
to you
maybe.
real quick. Yeah, no, my relationship now, well, it's funny. I sometimes call myself a snackatarian, just because I really do enjoy my snacks. It's kind of like my
I
one of my
hate
big
you. I
balances.
hate you so much. I hate you so much.
I know you do. But no, I definitely kind of following along with what Katie was saying. I think that you're right, Katie. It's all about listening and becoming friends with, your body and your own urges and, really listening to what's something that I genuinely need. Somebody had said to me one time that you could see food as an item or you could see it as fuel. And so when I really kind of switched that whole idea of, okay, when does my body need, food? What does my body actually need for food? And then actually being mindful with my eating capacities so that I can actually allow that slow, mindful spiritual process of allowing, the amount of time it takes for my brain to register that my stomach is actually full, right? Really even just allowing that space there to kind of become more aligned. Because just as Katie, as you were saying, and Shahar, you were saying as well, like it's very easy for us to just mindlessly eat and just go and go and go and go until all of a sudden, oh, I'm stuffed and now I got to take a nap or something along those lines, right? But if you really kind of incorporate that mindfulness portion of it, right, you can really define and really kind of even understand, even somatically, right? I talk a lot about somatic experiencing through therapy and things like that. It really brings awareness and recognizing the language of your body as well, right? What are some of the nutrients that I need? What is a time to eat versus, am I just bored, right? Or when do I actually feel
Mm,
full? Sometimes maybe there's a delay there. So by incorporating a lot of those steps, that's kind of what really has helped me bring me back into balance. Full transparency, I still struggle with body dysmorphia. I think a lot of us that have gone through, the process of working with and altering eating disorder behaviors do, right? But then that goes into a whole different realm of, like self-esteem building, some of the things you might come into my office for. So that's just kind of in a nutshell, kind of
right.
what my experience has been presently compared to what it
Right.
was in the past. So.
Yeah. Well,
thank you
beautifully
all.
put, Michael. Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing. And then we'll definitely do another episode of this because I think there is no ending to this topic.
Oh
So,
yeah, definitely.
thank you so much for bringing your wisdom, Michael,
Of
and
course.
your glorious Adonis. You now
All
go.
right. Enjoy the
Sure.
rest of your conversation, guys. Really looking forward to seeing how it turns out. But I love you both. I'll catch
Uh,
you soon.
uh,
Bye.
see you, Michael. Okay, now that Michael
Now he's
failed it,
gone.
now
Now we
let's
can.
gossip about him. So, okay. Now we talked about spirituality in the context of freedom. We talked about spirituality and food in the context of awareness. We talked about spirituality in context of harmonized relationship. And let's kind of expand this. Let's make it maybe a little more practical because I like what Michael said about food being a somatic experience. I never thought about it. I intuitively understood it, but I never thought about like the idea of eating. It's a very heavy sensation experience because it's everything. It's what you see, it's what you hear, it's what you smell, it's what you taste. It's all these senses working together.
And actually, it is even before you've started eating because
Right,
it's the sensations of your body signals. Like a lot of, we use the word somatic and stuff, but really like it's feeling, like
right,
which is
right.
not revolutionary, but it is for someone who eats without feeling or eats specifically to numb. So, so it's really not just when we eat, but it's throughout our whole day because that's what's going to guide us to eat or not eat.
Right. And
Our
I
body
remember,
signals.
yeah, and I remember from my experience when you went through your journey to have food freedom and like you said, even create a new normal of relationship with food. It's something that I noticed because I was not never a binge eater, but there was a lot of little habits that I noticed that are ingrained in me from my upbringing. If it was overeating, I remember I used to have the story. My mom likes to tell that story. So when I left the dining room table to go to the bathroom, I used to yell at everybody, "Don't eat my food! Don't eat my food! I'm just going to the bathroom. I'll be back."
Because you had big brothers.
Yeah, I had big brothers who would steal my food, but it was ingrained as a trauma.
Right.
So I'm assuming a lot of people who are listening to this probably can relate, even if they're not binge eaters, to that relationship with food. And I know these days, because I'm very heavy, I'm very somatic, so I can really feel my relationship with my body and with food. And I can actually feel that my stomach probably literally shrunken down because I can feel when it's full much faster. I can feel when I'm missing nutrients. Like sometimes I ate and I'm full, but I am not nourished. Like I went out and I had French fries and I had or something. I just went out with friends. I ate. I'm physically full, but I have not been really nourished. And also not just nourished vitamins, etc., but also sometimes not nourished from a relaxed state. Like how you said, sometimes we miss that relaxed state. So sitting down to eat can be a moment of peace, or it can be a moment of chaos.
Correct. Yes, I agree. And I've seen your evolution with food also. Like the example you gave.
Oreos, Oreos.
We both have come a long way with Oreos, I'll say that. We both have come very far. Um, but like even just that example you gave of, don't take my food, don't take my food. That's scarcity, right? I'm afraid it won't be there. And we've all, I think, to at least some degree, right? We've seen people who had like genuine food scarcity, like grew up in, Russia where they were like literally waiting in the cold in line for a piece of bread, not knowing if they'd even get it, like legitimate food scarcity, but others have experienced more self-imposed scarcity, like I'm going to be on this diet and not eat carbs for this amount of time. I don't know if you remember fairly early into my um, healing process. Remember, I did that program and it was for fitness, but they had like the
Yeah, I remember it really well.
and
And
I,
because
at
there's
that
no
point,
fruit.
yes, I wasn't struggling with food at all at that point. Like I was doing really, really well. And I was like, okay, I'll just like loosely follow this plan. But there was like no fruit in it. And there was like so little carbs to the point where like I was pouring out these little tiny portions of oatmeal where I was like used to eating a lot more oatmeal and like fruit. And I started craving sugar like
I
crazy. And I
remember.
remember I had like a binge on. I was like giving a program even on food, and they had like a gift basket for me in my room, and I binged on the whole gift basket as I'm about to teach. And I'm like, what's happening right now? And then, of course, I made the connection. Of course, I'm restricting my fruit, I'm restricting carbs. So, of course, I'm craving sugar and carbs, but now I'm eating them
Right,
like you said, I'm full, but I'm eating them in a non-nourishing way because I'm eating crap instead of what I was eating before. So,
right.
it's only human, all this food scarcity, it's only human and it goes even beyond human. It's biology in animals. For those of you who don't know, Shahar and I used to be married and we used to foster rabbits, much to Shahar wasn't really for it at first, but I
Worst
was
pets
persistent.
ever.
But
Worst pets. I loved them and I hated them at the same time.
We loved them. And we adopt two of the ones who we adopted, Sophie and Skimble. Sophie came from a
We
situation.
fostered. We fostered. That was like a different.
Yes, we fostered them. And Sophie and Skimble, Sophie came from a home where her owner actually had passed away, and nobody knew that Sophie.
This I adopted.
Would you
This I
stop
adopted.
interrupting me, please?
That- and that's why we're not married.
So Sophie, who's a rabbit, like, but what happened was her owner passed away while she was in a cage, and people didn't know. So Sophie almost starved to death until someone found her and then took her to the rabbit rescue, and then we fostered her.
Right.
But what did we notice about her? When it came to food, she would push Skimble out of the way. She would never stop eating. She was like very aggressive in making sure she could eat, even though from our standpoint, we were giving her all the food she could ever want and more.
Right.
So it's we beat ourselves for not having enough willpower to battle these food cravings. But in reality, if your body, if your subconscious reactions and your nervous system is in fight or flight scarcity mode for whatever
Mhm.
reason, in whatever capacity, you will crave that energy of overeating. Why? Because your body is trying to get balance. Like Sophie was overeating, not because she, like she was trying to get balance from the survival situation she was in. Her body's still in that stressed state until she, you know, could recognize like food is always available. So sometimes like that is the core for a lot of people, is shifting from that energy of scarcity with food, but to the energy of abundance with food, which a lot of people fear that word because it's like, oh, well, if
Mhm.
I have abundance, I'll just never stop eating. No, no, no. Abundance is the energy of non-urgency. Like there's no rush. Like you have all the time in the world, and you can have whatever you want, but because there's like genuinely no rush and it's not going anywhere, you can actually tune into when this would feel good, when it wouldn't. Can I share a story about you actually that I remember that I give as an example to clients still?
Yeah, sure, please. I'm
So
looking forward to
so we went with my family to this like diner. It was like an all vegan diner in Brooklyn, and it was like known for like all the classic comfort diner foods, but like vegan style, but
it. Right.
really, really, really good.
I
And you,
remember.
you got
Mhm.
this like monster of a burger that was like multiple decks. It was like, I don't even know how you open your mouth that wide. But anyway, so you get the burger and you got like halfway through it. And I remember you sat back and you like felt your abdomen and you were like, and you said this out loud. You were like, I could keep eating this because it's so good. But I think I would actually enjoy it more if I just stopped now since I'm getting full and I saved it for later and then I could enjoy it again later. And that is a perfect example of both body listening and abundance mentality because you didn't say, like, oh, I'm getting full. I should stop, but I don't really want to stop. And it wasn't an inner battle. You made the decision from a place of respecting your body, but also being like, ooh, well, when I get to have it later, it'll be fun all over again. So it's a lot of abundance thinking. And that is in my opinion, like maybe that burger in itself wasn't objectively the most healthy thing you could have eaten. I felt like you ate that in a very healthy way with a healthy mindset.
Right.
So health doesn't just go into like what the food is, but it's also how we're viewing, how we're interacting, what our whole process is around it. Health takes many forms when it comes to food.
Right. And health is a holistic form. And the idea of our relationship with food when it comes to that whole somatic experience, because it's a whole, right? It's the way we talk to ourselves, it's the way we eat, it's the way we breathe, the way we digest also. Because if you eat and then you immediately go to do something that is very stressful, it will hurt your digestion, etc. So there is a point to anxiety that can hurt that experience of food. And food on its own is just food, right? I've never starved a day in my life, but for some reason, I got myself to that body experience, that muscle memory of oh, I will starve if I don't eat this now. Or I have this burger, I'm not gonna have this burger again, so I have to eat it now. That's my experience to enjoy it. And and I'm assuming everybody who is listening to you had that experience to one extent or another.
Oh
So
yeah.
so
Even normal, quote unquote normal eaters, like just look at Thanksgiving. Everyone pretty much overeats on Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
But look at it. It's like one time a year that I get this pie, and it's one time a year that my Aunt Margaret makes this, blah, blah, blah. So I
And
got to get it
Margaret.
all in. Doesn't matter what my body's giving me for feedback. This is my only chance. So I
Right,
think we all, like, I think it's very human. I think it's beyond human. Like I gave the example with Sophie, it goes into biology with animals, even bears, right? They hibernate, they eat, they
right.
overeat a lot to get them through the winter. So if we think a winter's coming, like, oh shoot, starting tomorrow, I can't have chocolate, like I'm going to eat a whole bunch of it now because in a sense, like I'm like,
Right,
oh, crap. I'm hibernating for the winter. Got to get it all in now while I still can. So this is about the transition, and this is where a lot of people struggle, I think, bridging the gap between the intellectual knowing, like knowing, okay, intellectually I know the food's not going anywhere, but then the body still remembers the fear, it remembers the scarcity. We have all these internal reactions that haven't changed actually. So it goes deeper than just telling
right,
ourselves food isn't going anywhere. I mean, that can help for sure. But a
right.
lot of us, we do have a, as you guys like to use the word, somatic experience where we feel actually stress and scarcity physically in our nervous system, which usually we're not even aware of.
I know this is such a wide topic. I feel like we can easily talk about this for another hour because I we haven't even touched on the concept of emotions and food. Because
Yeah.
emotions themselves are a form of energy. Well, they are energy, not just, yeah, they are a form of energy. So not just our thoughts, but our emotions around it. Like sometimes you would eat because you crave some sort of comfort, or you eat because you feel angry, or you would feel out of happiness. Like sometimes it's connected to a happy feelings. So the way we transmute this energy, and it's really what food is taking in a matter and transmuting into energy into your body, and we use energy in order to consume it. So it creates this energetic ecosystem with the food outside and the food within us, and how we work around it and harmonize, which is really kind of my concept of spirituality, which is harmony, freedom, and awareness. So let's finish on this point, and hopefully I can get you for another episode, and we'll try this one. We'll talk about that more, but let's tap into, or not tap, but just practical advice, right? What is the easiest thing you can suggest to someone who's listening? Was like, I don't know if I'm a binge eater, I don't know if I'm not, but I do tend to overeat. I never thought about eating in this way. I do numb. I do watch my phone. Should I stop watching my phone? Is that from now on, is that a bad thing? If from now on, if I sit down and eat with my phone, is that I shouldn't be doing that from now on? Or so I'm assuming these are a bunch of questions. So what do you think is the best practical advice to incorporate spirituality into everyday life with food?
Well, even as you kind of were framing all these potential questions that people might be having, my instinct is let's slow down. And I
Yeah.
think that that's actually the best advice I could give, but I want to explain what I mean by slow down.
That's your
So
answer for everything.
everybody calm down. So think about if you're on a train. I give this example to my clients. So imagine you're on a train and that train is going like 150 miles an hour, and you're sitting at the window and you look out the window. What do you see as you look out the window? You
Zoom,
see
zoom, zoom, zoom.
just a blur, right? You're not
Yeah.
seeing
Zoom.
anything formed, you're just seeing a blur. Now, if you start to slow that train down, still looking out the window, maybe you would go half the speed. Now, what do you see? Now, there might be certain things that you can make out. It's not necessarily, clear, but it's not a blur. Maybe you can see a house or a tree. You start to get a clearer picture. Now, what happens when you physically stop the train and you look out the window? Now you can see great detail and you have this awareness of where you are. You can see the bird, you can see the squirrel, you can see the house number, you could see the mailbox. You get the full picture. So, when it comes to awareness, right, our ability to see clearly, we cannot do it without first slowing down, which can mean in a lot of these cases, slowing down in the sense that you're shifting actually your nervous system from that fight or flight mode into that calm rest and digest mode, which is the ideal physical way to be eating anyway. Like there's no negative side effects to this, only positive. So the more you can just, if nothing else, I mean, go listen to my podcast if you really want help, because this is like just the surface of it all. And if you, especially if
Right.
you do struggle, like you, I'm sure you want more than just like, here's a quick tip. You want to
Right.
really move away from this. Um, so there's that. But I'll just say, as general advice that I think could serve every single person, no matter who you are, is if you just start slowing down more, and that could mean taking more pauses between bites. Like I'm talking simple, small stuff, chewing more, chewing slower, maybe relaxing your shoulders before you start eating, making sure you're not in shovel mode, putting your fork down between bites, taking slower breaths even as you eat. All of these are examples of just physically slowing down. Imagine your body is the train. That means, when you're walking around and you just grab something to eat and I mean, foods have been made for being quote unquote on the go. Like I remember there was like a yogurt thing called Go-Gurt. It's like you're literally supposed to like eat it while you're moving. Think of that as like the opposite of what we're doing here. When we're
Right.
slowing down, where we become more present, we become more aware. And without that step, we can't actually listen or feel anything else. Just like if I like to also compare it, like if you are in a relationship with someone else. This, I think, Shahar, is why our relationship was so good. Even though we're divorced, I still hold to that.
By the way, best divorce ever. Best. Nobody beat that divorce. It was
Yeah, I mean, it
fantastic.
wasn't a blast or anything, but it was definitely of the divorces, I would take ours.
Very, very harmonious, let's
Yes,
call it.
I would say it was harmonious. And but I think a lot of the reason why our marriage was so good and why our divorce was so good is because we didn't react out of anger. We would, if we were both angry or something like that, we would slow down and we'd calm ourselves first so that way we could actually be receptive and listen to the other person. I believe the same thing needs to happen with ourselves in order to really hear our bodies, in order to really feel and understand, just like we would with another person. We have to slow ourselves down enough and calm ourselves enough to be able to be those receptive listeners. So, this is the gift that keeps on giving. It's the skill that keeps on
Mm.
expanding into every area of your life. If you can just master slowing down, so many other doors will naturally start to open up for you. But also listen to my podcast. That's my
Of course.
advice.
Well, that's that. I agree with that because there's really, well, first of all, if you really want to go deep, definitely connect with Katie, listen to her podcasts, work with her. Like it's definitely a treat. And I like how you said it's the practice itself keeps expanding because the more you practice, the more the rewards, and it just keeps expanding, expanding, expanding. And as a practical advice, I like what you said about slowing down. And really, the best tool we have for that is our breath. Our
Yes.
breath literally changes our physiological nature from sympathetic to parasympathetic. And you can use a lot of yogi concepts, like for example, yoga nidra, that teaches us how to relax different parts of our body using our breath and our mind. You can do
Yep.
the same thing while you're eating, and it doesn't mean have a full hour session. but just be aware. Like, for example, the more I was aware of my stomach or more aware of my belly, when I ate, I took a moment and I take moments to kind of just listen. And like you said, it's like, okay, that feels full. Little things like your change bud starts changing. That's something I've been noticing a lot. When I'm eating beyond hunger, things don't taste as well. Like you
Yes.
can tell the shift in flavor. Or
Yes.
another thing, if I eat too fast, I can notice I start coughing.
Yep.
I do this
Yep.
when I eat too fast. So when I'm aware of my body and I have a good relationship with my body, now we're working together. So when we can start slowing down the train even more and not just slow down the train, now I have control where I want the train to go. Now I can
Exactly.
change and go to a different train and go this way and go this way. Now I'm in a hub.
And a strength that you've always had, which you've really helped me, is to not have the perfectionist mentality around this, because I can already hear people saying like, well, maybe you guys can slow down when you're eating, but for me, it's just too out of control. Well, for, again, listen to my podcast. but but really what you can practice is, without being all or nothing about it, if food is the most challenging area for you, start on a path of least resistance and just practice your slow rhythmical breathing, your muscle relaxation in other times of your day. It could be in the morning. The way we do one thing is often the way we do everything. And don't think that you can just run around like your head's cut off all day and then suddenly be incredibly relaxed while you're eating during your most challenging time. So it's important to train your body to actually make that shift from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic so it memorizes the route essentially. And a lot of my
Yeah,
clients see it with that they maybe they practice, with me and in the specific ways I teach them. And of course, the goal of what we're doing is with food. But,
yeah,
how many times have we seen people who are like, "Oh, I'm afraid of flying and I got in an airplane and there was turbulence, but
right.
I just like kind of tuned into my breathing and slowed down my breathing and like it was the calmest my husband ever saw me. So it
Yeah.
it will support you everywhere. So don't get in your own head and say I can't do that, or it's important to not have a perfectionist mentality around this. It's important to see this as skill building rather than all or nothing. And the more you just treat this as skills that you're building, just like playing piano or learning a sport or anything else that you've become good at, and surely you're good at some things, it just requires your practice and your awareness
Right.
and your dedication. That's all. That's all.
Yeah. And train when it's easy, let it bleed over when it's hard. That's really
Right? And it does
that's such a
it does work when you train properly.
beautiful, beautiful. I think obviously there's so much more that we can uncover on this, and there's so many that we could talk about sleep and relationship to food, etc. But
Um,
maybe we'll do another episode on that. We'll do an episode on spiritual divorce.
yeah,
That would be a good
next
episode.
time.
Spiritual marriage and spiritual divorce, and I think that's a good topic. We could definitely put some cool stuff there. So, but for now, we'll leave it in spiritual and spirituality and food. And I want to definitely do another episode on that because there's still more to uncover here. And definitely listen to Katie Papo's podcast, ending food freedom and
Binge eating to
ending
food freedom.
yeah, ending binge eating to food freedom. Yeah,
Don't
that's
worry,
the
it's
way.
not
You're
like you've
not.
worked in the business for like 5 years, but
All
okay.
right. And Katie, how can people find you?
So, my website is my name. It's katiepapo.com. So, if you want to just start there, you can sign up for my free stuff. You'll see the link to my podcast. You'll see my program that will be announced soon. My newest version of it. I don't know if I mentioned this. I don't think I did, but this is actually like my 10-year anniversary of my own healing. So, that was a lot of
Oh,
the cause of my reflection and rebuilding things just from reflecting on everything I've learned and all the people I've worked with. I spent like 10 years as a binge eater, and then it's been 10 years of just ease and peace and fun with food. So I hope that somewhere in my offerings you can find something that supports you.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you so much, Katie. And that was fantastic. And you have such a unique voice on this. And I think this is something I love the idea of making it the new normal because even the quote unquote normal eater is not connected to our body. It's something that they see all over. We're not connecting to our body when we eat. We are constantly distracted. So I think anything that brings more harmonious relationship with food and relationship with other people and relationship with ourselves is definitely worthwhile endeavor. So that's why we love spirituality so much. And thank you so much. And thank you everyone for watching. Make sure you like, do the subscription thing, write a comment of your questions, your experiences. We'd love to hear it. And if you have a cool comment about your experience, we'll definitely bring it up, questions in our next video. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.
Bye, everybody.